Hey, what up, dog people? Welcome back. It is Wake Up Woodward, and we appreciate you guys for choosing to kick off today with the Woo Crew. Got to get them victory shades on, my man Flannel. Why? Because the Detroit Pistons, they beat down those Brooklyn Nets, man. They welcomed Killian Hayes to town. Not so nicely, though. They did beat the Nets 115-94. And the thing that I take away just instantly is that the Detroit Pistons have held 3 of their last 10 opponents under 100 points. 2 of those opponents were the Clippers and the Boston Celtics. So yes, they did get smacked, absolutely smacked by the Denver Nuggets. The Nuggets came in here and said, yeah, we heard you've been playing some defense. We're just one of those teams that don't care. 134-119 victory for them. And you know what? Mike Malone came in talking greasy. He was like, look, I ain't letting them do all this physical stuff. And we're all champions, man. MVP candidate. Jokic came in and got the better of them. But they did pick themselves back up, like we said before the break. Winners of 9 of their last 10. And in the month of February, Flannel, they finished. I got some stats here for you, brother. They finished 9-3. They had the 5th best net rating in all of the NBA in the month of February, which is absolutely amazing. Pistons had the 3rd highest field goal percentage in the league that month, which was their 11th best in calendar month in franchise history. So this team is not just playing good in the scope of Pistons history, but in the scope of some of the best teams in the NBA right now. And shout out to Asar Thompson. He had 17 games with at least a steal, which was his career high, and during that span he had 33 steals, which ranked him 2nd in the NBA. So shout out to the Pistons. I want to be able to get into that environment, but just your quick takeaway from the Pistons over the weekend.
Over the weekend, we'll start really briefly with the Nuggets game. That was not a great game. I think that Cade probably played his worst game of the season. All this happened in one game, by the way. Yeah. Cade played his worst game of the season. Jokic gave you 23, 17, and 15. So not just a triple-double, a triple 15 on 12 shots. Everyone on the Nuggets not named Nikola Jokic shot 17 of 28 from 3, which is 61%, including Michael Porter Jr. at 6 of 7. You'd struggle to do that in an empty gym by yourself, but he did that against the Pistons. Jamal Murray 5 of 9 from 3, and Christian Brown was 10 of 14 with 23 points. So basically my point is that everything went right for the Nuggets, and Cade played his worst game of the season. Of course they're going to lose that one, and I'm not saying that you can't be critical of them for that, but at the same time, if you would have told me before even that 4-game homestand that they would go 3-1 and their only loss to the Nuggets, I would have taken that any day of the week. And it was helped, of course, by the way that the Pistons bounced right back and just put belt to ass to an inferior Nets team. And how great is it that we can be looking at a team like the Nets, who were without Cam Thomas and D'Angelo Russell, and be like, we're so much better than them. I'm not even worried. We're going to kill them by 20, and they actually went out and did it.
Yeah, you know what? They're a different class of team. And what do we say? Yeah, every season, and my Woodward Pistons people, they definitely know this. Rod and I wait by the 20-game mark before we actually set in our predictions, not just for the Pistons, but for the league. And what do we do at that mark on that show? We talked about the fact that the Pistons were going to rise and have a real shot at number 4. Go back and rewind the tapes. We said they're going to have a real shot at number 4 because of the improvements that we're seeing already, the commitment to physicality and defense already that we want Michigan to do. And we said the dysfunction of other teams. Jalen Suggs might be gone for the year and then some. The NBA Shams just announced yesterday that he's gone. So Orlando is now dealing with that, and that puts more pressure because he kind of made up their kind of big 3 with Paolo and Franz. Now that's going to put more pressure on these guys who they've been battling their own injury stuff. You got Miami, you got Atlanta, you got Philly, you got teams that are fading, not just this season, but you got to think what's going on with their long term. Then you're looking at the Pistons, who are playing themselves into a position realistically to keep pace and have a chance. They're just a half game behind the Pacers, a game behind the Bucks. They can make some noise here, and they're doing this behind, honestly, a resurgence of Detroit defense and physicality on both sides in the paint. This was an interesting stat to me because as much as I want to talk about their defense, check this out. 398 total dunks by the Pistons this season. You guys have heard me talk about Duren being one of those guys that's up there.
Duren.
That's the most in the NBA. So they dunk more than any other team in the NBA, highlighting their fast-paced offense as being an assault on the rim led by Jaylen Duren's 162 slams. He is currently number 2 in all of the NBA in dunks. And tell me that he doesn't take those matchups with Nick Claxton personally, because he definitely did. And there was a time where I wanted Claxton here to play alongside Duren, because I believe maybe give Duren a little bit more time to develop. But who we're seeing and what we're seeing out of Jaylen Duren right now, that's why I say him and Asar Thompson have opportunities by next season to put their names in the conversation and in the mix of All-Star, because he's having an impact on this team that goes well beyond just even the stat sheet. We see what he's doing blocks-wise. He and Stu combined for 10 blocks. And the Pistons had their season high in blocks as well, 14 in the game against the Nets. And they were menaces. Teams were afraid to try and go all the way to the paint on them. And you know what? The Detroit Pistons faithful that were in the building, they loved it, man.
Yep.
Absolutely loved it. You can tell that this team, before, whether the shot's falling or not, whether they're getting some turnovers or not, their energy, their hustle, their defense, they're diving on the floor, they're trying to get around every single screen. That just seems to be high on every single play that I see from these Detroit Pistons under J.B. Bickerstaff.
And that's what I loved about the Pistons' performance against the Nets, because the Nets, there was a little bit of a basketball gods get back for the Nuggets shooting unconsciously hot from 3 against the Pistons, because the Nets, they were not so good. 6 of 39. The starters were 2 of, I believe it was either 2 of 27 or 2 of 28. Either way, really, really bad.
15%.
15% as a whole, and the starters were even worse than that. But not just that, you highlighted with the Nets, when they went to the paint, when they were putting that weak stuff up, Jaylen Duren and Isaiah Stewart were just swatting it away. Jaylen Duren had 6 blocks. Jaylen Duren was the best player on the floor that night. 18 points, 11 rebounds, 6 blocks. And that first block that he had, where he didn't block it, he snatched it and took it coast to coast for a layup. Oh, that got me bricked up. It was beautiful to watch. He ran the break by himself.
Yeah.
Finished himself. I didn't know he had it in you, man.
That's the stuff that, you know what? It's like it's there, but you were so frustrated because it just wasn't there. From a physicality standpoint, look, he's not polished at all. It's just what we're seeing right now. A lot of his supporters were like, we believe it's there, but where is it? And we have to be fair to this fact. He's had 3 head coaches in 3 years as a Detroit Piston. And this has been the best development, seeing how much they've brought in and how much they're pushing him now in shoot-arounds and in practices. I realize now his development is just now starting. Everything beforehand was effectively him going out there and trying to do his best, but without that guidance. Go back and listen to guys like Stanley Johnson and Andre Drummond who didn't have that guidance. And they talk about, we wish we had this stuff sooner. And part of their platform now is going out there and advising people, find guidance. Do the right thing early. This is a part of Stanley Johnson and Andre Drummond's story and platform. So to see them get this right with Jaylen Duren early, and to know that for him to get this right this quickly, now that they have the development around him, it means that guys like Jaylen Duren have always been working, and now they just got them on the right track, and that synergy is blossoming quickly for the Pistons. I didn't think it was going to be this quick. Did I believe playing with a chance to get 6 seed? Yeah. But this team is going out there, and they have intentions on hosting a home playoff game. And I got some cuts that we're going to queue up in a little bit here. But KG, I gotta ask you as well, bro. This weekend, I thought that this was a success, especially in understanding they've won 9 of 10. They bounced back after losses.
No, absolutely. And just real quick on the Duren point, coaching is definitely a big part of that. I am not doubting that at all. But to me, the biggest change in his game is just being aggressive. It's the effort. It's the want to. And you see it on this guy, over the last month, he's been an absolute menace defensively, man, to the point where I think he can be the number 2 on this team. Like I knew he was good. I knew, what he might have been capable of, but he's showing a whole different level, and he's still very, very young. Like you said, he's not even polished yet, and he's already showing us some things that is just like, we haven't had this on a Pistons team and God knows how long, really since Ben Wallace, man. The fact that he can go out there defensively. He had a block.
Him and Stu.
Yeah, bro, he had a block that looked like a 2K animation, bro. The one he just snatched out the fucking air, that was absolutely crazy, bro. But as far as the weekend goes, I mean, we all knew the Nuggets game was going to be a tough task. They were coming off a back-to-back, I believe. You would have liked to seen the Pistons play a little bit better. And, for a majority of the game, they were in it until about the third quarter, and that's when you saw a championship team just take over from three, and they just weren't good enough on the perimeter. Like you said, Cade probably had his worst game, but he's due for one because he's been absolutely amazing. And supporting cast couldn't get much done. But that turnaround game against the Nets, they dominated, and that's what you want to see from a team, man. Handling business against teams you're supposed to handle business against. And also, out of these last three games, I feel like the Celtics was the big one. That's the one we should be paying more attention to, is because we're looking up at the Celtics right now in the Eastern Conference, and to know that we can compete with them, dare I say, maybe later on in the year, it's good to know that. It's good to know that. I'm not worried about this Pistons team at all. You can't win every game, but the fact that they were able to just dominate the Nets, and I mean they dominated the Nets, that was a good sign, and overall a good weekend. It was absolutely a success. Just keep the train rolling.
Yeah, the reason why you look at that Celtics game as well is because of the Celtics shoot that three ball well. The Nuggets shoot the three ball well. So you're able to juxtapose those two and realize this is a matter of not just your physicality, because they were physical against the Nuggets, but you're going to have to run them off the line. Yeah. They did that very well and very successfully against the Celtics, and they kind of failed at that when you talk about what the Nuggets were able to do. And I believe it's because of where their superstar is. When it's Jason Tatum out on the perimeter and not a lot of, threat in the paint, it's different. But when Jokic can start at the free throw or on the block or 16-footer, in the land of McDice, or take you out on the perimeter, everyone on the court has to be looking at him. Defensively, we knew Asar could match up one-on-one against Jason Tatum. Yeah. And so Nikola Jokic and his gravity, you want to talk about a player with gravity, that's him.
His
and so
own
he
orbit.
takes one sniff to the right, and the whole defense shift, and you leave a guy like Michael Porter or any of his help open, it's a bucket. Yeah. So it's like, in terms of where this team has to get, that's one of those things where you have to really keep up offensively more so than defensively and stick to your principles. Whereas with the Boston Celtics, they actually, because of their physicality and their size and their ability to be versatile defensively, they match up well with them. And that's where I don't care if Jaylen Brown is there or not. That's where I am more, you're right. You're glad to see this team go and beat some of these teams that they're punching up at. They got the Knicks now. They got the Celtics now. Yep. They got the
these are key wins.
The key wins. Yep, and that's what I'm talking about. I got one more stat here, and I want to we'll go to break and come back, and I want to talk more about the arena experience on the other end of it. But you talked about Jaylen Duren kind of giving you some shades of a young Ben Wallace with his athleticism and what he's able to do, and he's starting to get that defensive instinct that I thought it was going to take some years.
Yeah.
But here's another player. We talk about Jaylen Duren and Ben Wallace. How about Isaiah Stewart and the name Rasheed Wallace? 6 straight games of multiple blocks for Isaiah Stewart. It's the longest active streak in the NBA, and it's tied for the longest streak of his career. He is tied during the same span for second in the NBA with 13 blocks and ranks 14th on the year with 72 rejections. His streak is the longest by a Piston since – anybody want to take a guess? Rasheed Wallace.
Oh, Rasheed.
Yes, this is the longest streak with 2+ blocks. I thought that would have belonged to Ben. It belongs to Rasheed. Now, Isaiah Stewart.
And before we go to break, since you mentioned Isaiah Stewart, I want to give you some more numbers on Beef Stew, because the real K77, Beef Stew equals Defensive Player of the Year. Not quite. However, Defensive Player of the per 36 minutes. Him and Asar both have a case.
Minutes.
I get, what is that? Well, that actually means a lot for this Detroit Pistons team because, you mentioned it. Isaiah Stewart has been swatting everything away lately, especially in 14 minutes against the Nets, which is spectacular given the fact that he's 6'7", listed as more, but he's actually probably 6'7". And Isaiah Stewart, following that game against the Nets where he had 4 blocks in 14 minutes, Isaiah Stewart is now averaging 2.5 blocks per 36 minutes. Ooh. Why is that significant? Because only one player in the entire NBA averages more than 2.5 blocks per game, and that's Victor Wembanyama, of course. No other person does that, and we know how limited Isaiah Stewart's minutes are. And you mentioned that he's 14th in the NBA in blocks total. He's 15th in blocks per game. But of the people who are in the top 15 of blocks per game, he plays the second least amount of minutes. next to Donovan Clingan. But Donovan Clingan, like everybody else in the top 15, is much taller than Isaiah Stewart. That's why we say on a per minute, on a per pound, on a per inch,
He's cooking.
on a per inch rate, Isaiah Stewart's been the best rim protector in the NBA this season.
And you know what? This is one other wrinkle to add to just how good Jaylen Duren and Beef Stew are. The first substitution of the game is generally Isaiah Stewart for Jaylen Duren. Sometimes they're entering for each other.
Yeah.
They do play together in stretches, but when you go out there and you see what Isaiah Stewart is doing, sometimes it's amazing to know that sometimes it's just him as the main rim protector without the help of Jaylen Duren. And sometimes to start the game, it's Jaylen Duren with no Isaiah Stewart on the court. That adds a little bit more because some of these other guys who are going to get consideration, just like when we talk about Cade Cunningham and MVP and All-NBA, you look at the help that he has versus other people. Trust me, bro, the Nuggets had more help than Cade. Jokic had more help than Cade did.
Yeah,
But that's what I'm saying. And then when you look at this thing the other way from the defensive standpoint, it fits the same way with Jaylen Duren and both Isaiah Stewart. They have less defensive rim protection help around them because they're generally subbing in and out for each other. But it gives the Pistons this opportunity to have an elite paint protector in the game for the majority of the entire game. Like, they're not taking dips.
Yeah.
Like, we read the stats about what Jaylen Duren's doing blocks-wise and assists-wise. Oh, my goodness. That's just on a whole nother level because he's still at, 4.5 a game over, since the trade deadline.
Offensively, he's growing because you're starting to see monster double-doubles now, not just regular double-doubles. He's going out there, give you 15, 17, and with 3 or 4
How do you
blocks.
go from not averaging a
crazy.
double-double to just I'm getting monster double-doubles?
18
And
and
stocks up.
18 and 11 on 7 shots and 8 stocks because he also had 2 steals.
You
And
know
by
I
the
love me
way,
some stocks,
man.
bro.
just another quick stat on Jaylen Duren before we pass it over to JB for merch. Those 8 stocks that Jaylen Duren had led directly to 13 points, 5 easy buckets and a Tim Hardaway Jr. 3. Defense to offense. That's how you start a break. Blocks and steals. Because most of the time, Jaylen Duren wasn't just blocking the shot. He was blocking it and keeping it in bounds for his teammates or him to get the ball. And sometimes when you have the opportunity, you just snatch it out of midair and take it yourself.
Yeah.
And you know
God,
what?
that's
And the
sexy.
fact he can run the floor is crazy too. Like,
It's a gazelle.
you almost trust him. Like, you normally don't trust your big man to run the floor like that, but it's been nice.
And I bet I'll tell you what too. If someone on the Nets would have stopped the ball, I bet he would have found someone for an assist.
Yeah.
But because they didn't, he was like, "I'll take it myself."
I feel
can
like
run, too.
We have a whole highlight reel of him just tossing the ball up to Asar Thompson on the break, and they are second in the NBA in fast break points. Second, they're just that close from being first, and it's crazy. Dunks. Do you guys realize how close they are to averaging almost more than 1 dunk a game than the team behind them? They're up by 0.6, 0.7 dunks over the team right behind them. It's insane, and it's insane. I've really been diving back into it, especially as we're getting closer to the combine and such. I mean, closer to draft time and the NBA combine and such. And we're going to be getting back into my Kool-Aid big board again.
Yeah.
And hopefully, a lot of the teams, a lot of the names that we had, the board kind of shook out just about that way, except for Dalton Connect. But it's just it's awesome thing to see right now out of this Pistons team and getting into the numbers, getting into just what's making this run so special for them. And you know what? You're seeing it with your eyes, and when you look at it with the stats, you're like, okay, yep, everything is lining up exactly how we see it right now with this team. They are more physical. They are playing better defense. They are playing better offense, and it's awesome to see.
Absolutely. More Pistons talking on the other side of the break. But first, JB Smooth, tell us about merch.
You said merch?